In the spring of 2025, the residents of the tallest residential tower in the Western Hemisphere walked into the New York State Supreme Court with a 46-page complaint and numbers that should have stopped Manhattan cold. 1,893 defects, $165 million in damages sought, and a 10-inch crack reported inside the structural spine of the most expensive condominium ever built in New York City. The building is 432 Park Avenue. The penthouse sold for $87.7 million. Total sellout, $3.1 billion. And the people who paid the most money per square foot in the history of American residential real estate are now in court arguing that the building they bought is, in their own attorney's words, a deliberate and far-reaching fraud. The building is 1,396 feet tall, 96 stories, with a height-to-width ratio of 15:1, which made it the most slender, super-tall residential building ever constructed anywhere in the world when it topped out in 2014. The architect was Raffaele Vignoli, an internationally celebrated designer who died in March of 2023, before the worst of what is in the file came out. The structural engineer was WSPUSA, the firm that helped invent the modern super-tall. The construction manager was McGraw-Hudson. The developers were Macklowe Properties and CIM Group. The first units closed in 2015. By 2016, 90% of the units had sold for more than $2 billion. The developers cleared a reported $900 million in profit, and then, almost immediately, the building started to fail. I want to walk you through what happened, because the timeline matters. This is not a story of one bad decision. This is a story of a sequence of decisions, each one defensible in isolation, that added up to something the residents are now calling fraud. If you are the kind of person who wants to read these files in order as I open them, Millennium Tower first, this 1 second, Allegiant Stadium next, the way to make sure you do not miss one is to subscribe to the construction files now before the next file opens. The series is built in order. Each file connects to the one before it, and the patterns I am about to walk you through in this tower are the same patterns I am going to show you in every file that comes after. This is document number 2. The 432 Park Avenue file is open. The first decision was the height-to-width ratio. 15:1 had never been built before in residential construction. Buildings that are that slender do not behave like normal towers. Wind moves around them differently. They sway in ways the human body can feel from the inside. They oscillate at frequencies that make liquid slosh in glasses and trash chutes vibrate at resonance frequencies. And according to the lawsuit, the sound was like a bomb going off over the 1,300-foot drop from the upper floors. The original design called for 5 open mechanical floors cut into the tower every 12 stories, specifically to break up wind vortex shedding. 2 tuned mass dampers, each weighing 660 tons, were installed between floors 86 and 89, designed to swing in opposition to the wind and cancel out the oscillation. The engineering response to the slenderness problem was elaborate and expensive. It was also, as it turned out, insufficient. The second decision was the concrete. The building was made of white Portland cement, 14,000 pounds per square inch on the lower 38 stories, which is roughly twice the strength of a normal high-rise concrete mix, 70,000 cubic yards of it, 12,500 tons of rebar. At the structural center of the building was a 30-foot square reinforced concrete spine with walls 30 inches thick. The spine is the element that absolutely cannot be compromised in a tower this slender. It is what keeps the building standing. And according to the April 2025 lawsuit, this is where a 10-inch deep crack is now located. The third decision is the one the lawsuit calls fraud. The architect, Raffaele Vignoli, warned the developer that the white concrete on the facade was not strong enough to handle the building's stresses. The engineering team agreed. They recommended that the facade be coated with a thick layer of elastomeric paint, a flexible waterproofing material that would seal the concrete and prevent water from getting into the cracks that any concrete this slender will inevitably develop. According to the lawsuit, the lead developer, Harry Macklowe, rejected the elastomeric coating. The reason given in the complaint was that the elastomeric paint would ruin the facade's appearance. Macklowe wanted the white concrete to show through because that was the building's signature visual element. Instead, the lawsuit alleges he chose a clear silicone coating. The specific silicone he chose, according to the complaint, was the same material used to protect the hull of his personal yacht. I want you to sit with that for a moment. The most expensive condominium tower in the history of New York City was waterproofed with yacht silicone. The architect warned against it. The engineers warned against it. And the developer chose the material because it was clear and the elastomeric paint was not. I personally think this is the single decision that will end up defining everything else in this file, because once the silicone was applied, every other failure flowed from it. And if you are still with me at this point in the file, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Somebody who wants the documented version of what happened, not the press release. The way I keep making these files is the same way every independent investigation gets made, by people who decide to subscribe and stay. If you have not already, hit subscribe now. The next file is already in production. By November of 2017, less than 2 years after the first move-ins, the building flooded between floors 83 and 86. Catastrophic water infiltration, tens of millions of dollars in damage. In November of 2018, pipes failed on floors 60 and 74, and water poured down 2 of the 4 elevator shafts. $9.7 million in water damage in a single year. Insurance premiums on the building rose 300%. On Halloween night 2019, a resident was trapped in a wind-stalled elevator for 1 hour and 25 minutes. In June of 2021, the building experienced its second electrical explosion in 3 years. In September of 2021, the first lawsuit was filed, seeking $125 million, with language calling the situation one of the worst examples of sponsor malfeasance in the development of a luxury condominium in the history of New York City. The first lawsuit settled. The 2025 lawsuit is the second one. The second one is different in a critical way. The first lawsuit alleged negligence. The second one alleges that the developers knew. The 2025 complaint alleges that McGraw-Hudson Construction and WSP-USA sent a letter to the New York City Department of Buildings that misrepresented the nature, extent, and type of cracking in the facade. The lawsuit claims this letter failed to disclose the full findings of a survey that had identified, by the condo board's count, 1,893 defects. The complaint alleges that the developers, in the original offering plan that potential buyers reviewed before purchasing, changed the wording around the facade's waterproofing. The original language stated that the concrete will prevent water penetration. The wording was changed, according to the complaint, to say that the concrete was designed to prevent water penetration. One word changed, from will to design to. The lawsuit argues that the change was deliberate, that it was made because the developers already knew the facade was failing, and that it was made to limit their legal exposure when the failures eventually came to light. In August of 2023, while the legal trouble was building, CIM Group, the co-developer, foreclosed on Harry Macklowe's 3 personal condo units inside the building. The man who built the tower lost his apartments to the company he had built it with. The current state of the file is this. The 2025 lawsuit, filed by the condo board, named CIM Group, Macklowe Properties, SLCE Architects, McGraw-Hudson Construction, and WSP USA as defendants. It seeks at least $165 million in damages. A CIM Group spokesperson said, "We vehemently deny the claim and will be moving to dismiss the complaint." Macklowe's representatives have called the cracking allegations exaggerated. The lawsuit is pending in New York State Supreme Court. While the lawsuit moves through the courts, the building's resale market has collapsed. Units that once sold for $10 million and $12 million have been resold at 40% and 50% losses. The 79th floor unit that listed for $135 million eventually sold for $65.6 million, a 48% discount. Thomas Peterfy, the founder of Interactive Brokers, who who owns the entire 84th floor, has been quoted publicly describing the building's problems. Jennifer Lopez and Alex Rodriguez, who moved in by 2018, were photographed touring potential replacement apartments within 4 years of their arrival. The penthouse owner, Saudi retail billionaire Fawaz Al-Hokair, paid $87.7 million in 2016, and the unit's current market value is a question even Manhattan brokers will not commit to in writing. I personally think the 432 Park Avenue file teaches something the Millennium Tower file also taught. The difference between an engineering failure and a fraud is what the people in charge knew, and when they knew it. A building that fails because nobody could have predicted it is a tragedy. A building that fails because the people who built it ignored their own architect, switched the offering plan language one word at a time, and chose yacht silicone over elastomeric paint to preserve a visual effect is something else. Whether the courts ultimately find that something else meets the legal definition of fraud is not for me to decide. But the file is open, the lawsuit is real, the 10-inch crack is real, the yacht silicone is in the complaint. The lawsuit specifies that the cracking and the water infiltration have already corroded some of the steel rebar reinforcing the concrete columns. That is the most expensive sentence in the entire 46-page complaint, because once the steel rebar inside reinforced concrete starts to corrode, the corrosion expands. Expanding steel cracks more concrete. More cracks let in more water. More water corrodes more steel. The process accelerates over time. It does not stabilize. It does not heal. The damage compounds. The 432 Park Avenue Tower will, by the laws of material science, continue to deteriorate inside its own concrete columns, regardless of what the courts decide about who pays for it. That is the part of this story nobody in the press release is willing to say out loud. The damage is now structural, the damage is now inside the spine, and the only honest question left is how long the building has before the bill arrives in a form nobody can settle. This is document number 2. This is what is in the file. The next file opens on Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, where the public was promised a $750 million gift and ended up writing a check that is not finished clearing. If you have made it this far in the file, you already know what kind of channel this is. The way to make sure you see the next one when it opens, and everyone after it, is to subscribe right now. Every collapse has a cost. Every cost has a record. We open the file.